Shout out to the guys in chat. Thank you, Simulix, for the 10 gifted subs.
Ooh.
And Buttercup for the $7. Thank you very much, guys. So we move on to Romanticide in this best of 5 PvP.
I just saw one of the people who got a gifted sub. Daddy Senpai. Ooh. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Right next to them is mixed Satanism. So.
All diversities, and we're very inclusive here in ZombieGrub's chat.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Okay, so it's a best of 5 qualifying match in the upper bracket. Whoever loses this has another chance, goes directly into the lower bracket qualifier round, and then whoever wins actually gets into DreamHack Summer, which starts, by the way, in 3 days. Starts Wednesday, and no one knows who's casting it. In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, we have DnS.
And up in the top right-hand side of the map, the red Protoss coming in hot off his win. It is strange.
It's definitely the left. That's okay.
Did I say top right?
You did, yeah.
Oh, okay. My bad. Sorry. I was busy just thinking, and earlier on, right before this, I was actually watching Neeb stream a bit, and DnS was hanging out there too. You know, trying to soak in a little bit of that Protoss master mind, I guess, strategy and everything. Watching Neeb playing a lot of PvPs on the European ladders, so hopefully you got a little bit inspiration for this one, because it should be. Strange is always willing to go, as we've seen, a bit off the super typical beaten path and do things a little bit more aggressively.
Well, you do have to be willing to do that in PvP. I mean, I think a lot of mirror matchups are supposed to be more diverse, since you both have the same utilities. Or strategies are going to have to differ, but PvP, with the amount of the amount of technology that matters to scout and the ways that you can deceive scouts, is just it's unmatched. You know, for a while it was just end sentence. It's hard to scout in this matchup. It's hard to know exactly what your opponent's doing, because there was a change with hallucination. If you guys don't remember PvP 5 years ago. But then Blizzard made hallucination a little bit cheaper, which actually was a great influence. It made a Sentry First have a very quick hallucination, so we could scout, you know, a 1-base Stargate, and was ultimately worth getting. And then they, of course, included the shield battery. I don't want to go over the entire history of PvP. But now it's like, great, you guys can literally constantly send out hallucinations. You will see PvPs like that. 2 bases, everyone send out hallucinations. And yet, information will still not be perfect. It's like watching them fly by with the Phoenix feels like map hacks when both of them have the full vision, and it's still not perfect information. Proxies and hidden tech, you know, the tech not expected from a Twilight Council, it's charged, not blink. I didn't quite see the Forge. Are they going for +2? Did they stop on +1? The Gateway's coming down now because he's going to attack me, or is it because his third Nexus is coming down right afterwards? It can be very, very messy, but it looks like this is going to be a macro game.
Yeah, both these players actually go double Stalker into double Sentry, and both these players also, with their you know, little pylon blocks and stuff, saw each other's first 2 Stalkers, so they kind of know, like, there's the potential that if they really wanted to, they could try to go for something like a 4 Stalker opening. So playing it a little bit more defensively, both of them getting up the shield batteries and the pylons, and they'll eventually realize with their hallucinating Phoenix scouts, like, okay, I don't have to worry about immediately just a ton of Stalkers coming my way with 3 gateways or something. But because they're both just sort of playing it a little bit defensively, we get to see, like you said, that bit of a macro game. And both of them, yeah, with the Twilight Councils also coming on up. But we're getting, I think, one of my favorite types of PvP, where it's a slight macro game in the early game, and it's not like crazy aggression. But then I believe both these players are going to go into Blink, and then we get to see a little Blink Stalker and Blink Stalker action.
Absolutely. And now the questions are, who gets a Forge, who doesn't? Who goes quicker into a third Nexus, and who thinks it's going to be a little more of a safety game? Because that's sometimes a lot of what is the trigger in these macro PvPs, is that one person takes a little bit more of a risk or is simply more confident than the other. So they're like, yep, I am thinking it's a macro game. Slap down that Forge, get the faster +1. Another guy who was like a little bit like, oh, you know, I wanted to get this first. I wanted to get that first. I want to put my chrono over here. I'm kind of scared. You're still proxying me. They come out later on it, and then they feel maybe obligated to do something else. in this case, they are both so close to each other. Yeah, it's going to go into the third Nexus. They both are correct for doing this. This is the map hack stage where it's just full vision for everyone and nothing actually deceiving is happening.
Yeah, there's literally only been 3 differences I can spot so far. One is that one of them got blink, then +1, and the other one got +1, then blink, so they're like 5 seconds apart on those. And then there's an extra pylon that came out earlier for Strange, and then I think there's like a 2-worker difference in favor of Strange. So it's literally, I've listed all of the differences between these players in this game so far.
Yep. Third gases were very similar times. The gateways coming down, I guess, are another slight difference, but the robos were even very well timed to each other. Because there is one thing you can do even with this setup, is that it can be very hard to actually know if there's a Dark Shrine somewhere. The Dark Shrine being made cheaper years ago at this point. You can sometimes like slip it in and still have blink and +1 on the way. So the robo timings can be something that's interesting to talk about if they were different. If one person was more aware of a DT or was trying to be greedier and push off the robo even more. They both did the exact same timing. Observers are on the way to cover them for any kind of those awkward in-between 2-3 DT timings. And then both going to charge in Temple Archives, because that is the way that PvP goes. If you've been out of the loop for a while, you don't watch StarCraft in the off-season, what have you. The last time you watched StarCraft was last year's DreamHack Summer. It's not really about disruptors anymore, much at all, actually. The transitional period of getting to disruptors was kind of, I guess, deemed too dangerous. So it is more so about, you know, blink into charge Archon, and then maybe after that, some disruptors.
Yeah, it's always a really scary point, like you were saying, where you only have 1 or 2 disruptors. And if they just get blunk on or something, it was like, oh, okay, all the firepower I was building up to is gone, and I just have fewer units. This is really tough, but, well, we're going to end up seeing... Archon's already coming out over here for DNS, and I think even just seeing that is going to actually be enough for Strange to say, yeah, I don't actually have to push in. So far this game, I mean, we can concretely say that... obviously, DNS is ahead because he's killed a pylon. That's the only thing that's been lost.
I don't know, man. He's also been ahead 2 to 4 probes. Look at that income graph.
That's true, actually.
What's so funny, though, is that, you know, if there's people out there who are only reading how much red versus blue, you are supposed to also read the numbers, guys. I know numbers are hard. I know math is hard. But, like, this would be very different if that top number that Trains just hit was 1,000. That'd be a huge difference. A 300 difference between the two is consistently is big. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as one-sided as the red makes it look.
Look, ZombieGrub, I like my arrows on the UI. Okay,
oh
I know
God.
You're not a fan of them, but I like my arrows because I don't have to do math then.
Oh my God, Boristy, you're out there. I know you are. I don't have to do math. Oh my God. Okay, higher number versus lower number. That's the math you have to do. All right, I'm good.
Regardless, we do see, just like you were saying though, continuous scouting. It seems like this has been a very passive game, and of course you can kind of look at this and shake off a lot of the stuff that's actually happening between these two players and be like, oh, they just decided like 10-minute no rush, neither one of them is going to attack. But they are very diligently keeping an eye out on their opponents. They are, like we saw Strange try to do a small little maneuver move out just to check in and see where things are at. They are actually testing the waters. There's small little positioning of the armies, differences in composition, so they are keeping an eye on each other, and the moment that they sense there's an opportunity, they're going to start pouncing. And I mean, we already see that DNS is actually starting to do a move out of his own, maybe identifying that Strange is pulled a bit further back away from his 4th base, but he's going to see that this is moving forward anyways.
Funnily enough, we went through a whole phase of like mass units and disruptors. We're kind of back to it just being with the Blink Stalkers first, sure, but we're back to it being charged on Archon +2 timing. That was what PvP was for a very long time, is that +2 timing would determine make or break, and that was back then more so around 3 bases than it was 4, but nowadays, as we can see, it's more around the 4. And it is kind of just like one of those, like, well, you're probably going to be very similar on everything, composition and upgrades. You're not going to hit the 15-second upgrade lead that you have, but it is a lot about the arc and whether charge lots run into Archons or run into Immortals, you know? And that's where the aggressor might think that they have the advantage. So that's why they decide to go for the +2 push even if it's, you know, so expected, so basic. In this case, DnS is trying to hit a 1-2 punch. Warping in the main, actually very effective.
Yeah, this is extremely awkward because the amount of Zealots that just got warped into the main base is more supply than Strange can actually warp in. Strange doesn't have enough supply available to warp in that many Zealots. He has to respond with a chunk of his army, and now there are actually Zealots over at the third base as well. Those are starting to get cleaned up, but more Zealots get warped in for DnS, and he is just forcing Strange into a really awkward position because now Strange has to defend on multiple fronts over here, and the army was down the ramp. Is he actually going to be able to bust in at the third or the fourth?
I'm not sure. Oh, it's actually maybe an okay time. +3's not done for Strange. He does have a shield battery, but no overcharge. I guess it was used in the main base, so how close is this fight? Both of them with Guardian Shield, but the blue starting to look a little lackluster. The Arc was a little too good for Strange. I guess maybe his Archon's got some better shots, and Strange comes out of this, even with the distraction in the main base, up 40-50 supply.
Wow. Yeah, really, really nicely done over there. Those PvP battles, especially with Charge-Led Archon, can look extremely hectic and just convoluted to an extent. But Strange holding on without even really... I mean, I guess the shield battery's helping out a little bit over there, but no, I didn't see a shield battery overcharge or anything coming out there from Strange. He still managed to make it work. Now we might need to see a shield battery overcharge coming out over here for DnS to try and hold on for a little bit, keeping some of these Zealots alive a little bit longer, keeping the Archons alive a little bit longer. Isn't actually going to be enough, though. The shield battery gets taken on out, and DnS is losing ground very quickly here.
Yeah, the shield battery was focus fire down. The only thing that kind of gave it a little bit of hope is that Strange's Immortals kind of walk in the charge lots, but, you know, at this point, a lot of time, Mortals aren't the biggest deal, and Strange's just army was straight up larger. So we kind of got a way to push through that. GG. Romanticide typically gives us those macro games, right? But that was one of the most mimicked PvPs I've seen in a while.
Yeah, no kidding. It usually at least stops around the time of like, then, you know, the second base comes out and then they start deviating a little bit, or maybe their third base is coming on out and they're starting to get down that additional tech. We got all the way to 4 bases before it started even mildly deviating a little bit. And that was mostly just deviation of who was attacking, who's defending.
Yeah, right. Which is so often where PvP goes down to. But as I said, like the reason that DnS might have felt not even an urgency, but just like this is his plan to attack, even when it's not surprising, you don't really have a ton of leads, is because sometimes taking the reins is the lead. But in that case, it wasn't even about just taking the reins. He was really hoping his Warpism in the main was going to mess Strange up a lot more than it did. It lasted a long time, but as far as its actual damage being done, Strange took it in stride, which I think is like a worse player would have panicked and sent 20 too much supply up to that main, right? So just kudos to Strange for deflecting that.
Well, that does mean that this is a 1-0 lead, but it's still a best of 5 because this is a qualifying match. So unlike the best of 3, it's not like, oh man, okay, now one more game and it's going to be Strange qualifying. No, he's still got to win 2 more off of DnS. And with a very close game number 1, that is definitely not going to be an easy ask. But already seeing that these 2 players are actually pretty well matched, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. And now we have game number 2. In the top right, we have the blue Protoss DnS.
And down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player. It is Strange.
It's not a stranger to actually being in Dream Hacks. I was actually a very unintentional pun, but damn, I wish I'd done it on purpose. Anyways.
Save it for the broadcast. Nobody heard it.
Okay, yeah, just pretty didn't hear it. That's gonna come out next week. But he's not a stranger to the actual tournaments, but he is, you know, he was one of the guys who kind of fell off a little bit more than the rest, actually. Like, and that's where Europe's mostly at, is that you do have people who would not be surprising to see in a group in DreamHack Summer, but someone's got to go at some point, and they are the ones that are gonna have to claw their way back a little bit. So DnS would also not be a stranger to seeing him at DreamHack Summer, but he is one of those guys where on a particularly bad day, because he hasn't done so well enough in the past, he's put himself in this precarious position. On a bad day, he could actually just straight up fall out. He could lose to Strange and then lose to Acheron in the bottom bracket, or whoever he's going to face, right? So that's where Europe's at. There's a lot of very good players. The only thing I'll add on to that is that we do typically see people who struggle to make it through, who aren't the shoo-ins. They don't do particularly well in the actual tournament itself. I think we're still kind of waiting for that breakout star, not just in the qualifiers, but also in the tournament. And the last one we had was Max Pax, really.
Yeah, at least on the European side of things,
Right.
I think that has definitely been the case. So we'll see. I mean, we definitely have a few young up-and-comers, or just, like you said, a few of those promising players who are getting pretty close to qualifying or have pretty much already nearly qualified at this point. So I'm interested to see how the season goes. This 2021. Always a new year, always a new opportunity to kind of break out and make a name for yourself. Lots of StarCraft left over, so.
And that's actually not even left over. It's technically it's just beginning. Like, we are starting the 2021 StarCraft 2 season, guys. So
That is true.
even though there's plenty of online tournaments, plenty of, good money there as well, there's the consistency of the Open Cup with very good players, very good practice. It's not the same as having the motivation of playing these really big, prestigious cups, or not cups, tournaments. So it's oftentimes where we see people kind of maybe start off slow, but then they get reinvigorated when they don't quite make it the way they want it. And we see them come back with a vengeance for fall. The next one.
Yeah. Small cute little thing over there, by the way, was that DnS was actually hiding his stalkers because there was a pylon block to block the natural. And he didn't want to reveal his stalkers there because he wanted the pylon to finish. That'd be 100 extra resources that were just sunk in, saying like, oh, this guy probably opened up a depths and that's why I'm not seeing anything attacking the pylon. It's like, no, it's actually stalkers. Then he throws on the shield battery in vision range of the pylon finished, cancels it as the third and fourth stalkers pop on out, and now he's just going to get hyper aggressive over here. Strange has his own shield battery, so he is going to be somewhat prepared to help defend over here, but I think that DnS is really looking to try and get something done.
DnS is entirely committed to this one base. A proxy pylon does come down, but that's just helpful. There is a War Prism on the way. Like, if the War Prism dies or is being used to ferry things around, you could use the pylon. While the War Prism's building, you can use the pylon. Strange is still in the dark. Just now he got confirmation. The 4 stalkers at the front was a little suspicious, so he absolutely knew he needed confirmation. He's got it, but is it too late? A Forge is on the way, which has really come into PvP as a defensive 2-base setup, which is, I think, different than previous months. But it's not done yet. Cannons will still have to be built. Shield battery number is not that high. Only 1 pylon for each of them as well is always scary.
Yeah, there is 1 gateway of production over here for Strange versus 3 of DnS. We see the overwhelming number of stalkers. The shield battery overcharge is coming on out. We're seeing again focus fire down. War Prism used to blink back a lot of these weakened stalkers. The Guardian Shield's going to be popped over here, but the Guardian Shield Sentry also gets target fired down. And now we end up seeing the shield battery in the back line starting to become of some use, but overwhelming numbers are so difficult to handle. The photon cannon coming out, like you said, ZombieGrub, but I don't know if that's actually going to be enough.
There's way too many stalkers. They easily one-shot down these cannons, the shield batteries, and the stalkers. Strange just didn't have the intel fast enough. And the Forge there, it has been used to defend some longer sieges, If you do manage to kind of ward away the first push, they have to recuperate, build up the units again, and then come back. The cannons can be extremely helpful, but the losses had already been taken. So cannons look kind of lame at this point. You're like, why didn't he get in a robo fast? Why didn't he get in a mortal faster? It's a new way to try and defend some of the leftover 1-base pushes from the proxy times of PvP, but it didn't work this time around.
Yeah, really, really tough, just because, like you said, you're also just kind of forced into something like that when you don't scout it until you're 12. Like, I think he scouted with the Hallucinating Phoenix that there was no natural, and then 3 seconds later, maybe, the Forge and the Twilight Council both finished up, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta do what I can with this, I guess.
He was just clearly thinking about a macro game. He was like, I'm gonna try and skyrocket up to a Twilight Council and a Forge, because that's what you do if both of you get a Nexus. But then the you know, at least the Forge can try to provide cannons. Yeah, it's not going to make up for how totally blindsided you are. Now, we are in that awkward period of PvP where the Immortals are out, the Force Field's there, the Warp Prism isn't going to try and jump over. It's going to be a little hesitant to do that. So it's a contain. And Strange has given himself a shot to win this game by not dying immediately.
There are 0 gateways on the map right now for Strange. He has 2 gateways about to finish, but right now there is 0 gateways of production. Finally, they're finishing on up, but this is gonna be really tough just because, yeah, Strange, he's basically entirely relying on the production from that the Robo at this point. Doesn't even have any Twilight Council upgrades going out right now, so it's not just the economy. Like, his production is not looking that great compared to DnS.
And breaking out of this is really difficult. He actually did pick up his Warp Prism, but there's an Observer there for DnS. Strange is going to spend the time to build his own Observer, which I think he's got to do, but it does suck. Also a lot of gas to build that. Observer's taken away pretty quickly. Good save. Good save, Strange. But the breakout's going to happen with either a Colossus or maybe a Disruptor just to like shoo away the army. Colossus obviously will break the Force Field.
Yeah, Snake Phoenix moves in, scouts out and sees everything that's going on over there, but also it runs over the army and sees, the Warp Prism is gone. And I think DnS kind of knows, all right, you're probably setting up a flank or you're coming to harass me. Either way, I'm okay with going home now. I have done my damage. I have my natural fully set up, and I have defenses back at home to help deal, you know, a little bit with this. Obviously, there's Immortals still finding some damage, although, ooh, blink forward, gonna be able to maybe get that Warp Prism with the reinforcements, and the Immortals are gonna be trapped now.
Yeah, very instant recall, but still loses one Immortal, another one taking a lot of damage, and we're back just to depending on a good Disruptor hit, but then he has to build his Warp Prism again, so he can't even afford to make the Disruptor. Robotics Bay now looks really awkward. It's not even gonna be used.
Well, ZombieGrub, I feel like this is where we have to go back to a legendary man known as M. Canning said, never give up with a Disruptor in a dream. So if you can survive to that first Disruptors, ZombieGrub, there's always a little bit of hope. It might be like the 2% hope, but it's a little bit of hope.
That's gonna be not even 1% milk, feardragon. It's gonna be like fat-free milk, all right? Like that's skim milk here.
Fat-free milk.
There's no chance. Strange doesn't even have a Disruptor, so M. Canning's words are not giving anyone any hope. There is a direct, blunt force attempt to take down DnS, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah, doesn't even have the time to wait for that first Disruptor or anything. Robotics Bay not gonna see any use for this game. Warp Prism warping in right underneath the Stalkers. Oh no, this couldn't have gone worse. DnS definitely not happy after that first game. He is gonna be getting his revenge though, tying up the series 1-1. Well done.
Very well done. A complete bamboozle. That was really nice. I mean, you noted the him trying to hide his opening, and then the shield battery that was being placed was a really good deception. And Strange absolutely fell for it. Was thinking about trying to match the macro game, get a little farther ahead than he did in the first game, which he won, so just make it easier for him. And then ended up being all the wrong stuff. Like, I don't know how you defend that when you have a Twilight Council and a Forge finishing. I guess if the shield battery was more defensively placed so it didn't get taken down, right? Like, that is a start. But it's pretty difficult. Yeah.
In my mind, like, I think at most it would be maybe something like I could imagine if there was I don't even remember if there was a pylon super close to the ramp, but like maybe a pylon on the high ground, and the shield battery also goes up on the high ground so that when you photon overcharge it and it's healing your units on the low ground that are maybe have to be pulled back a little bit more, like it can't just get sniped off because there's still a low number of units. Shield battery overcharge can do a lot, but even then, I don't know if that would actually have been enough.
Exactly. And we do see that type of setup in a decent number of PvPs, but it's not one that Strange was tempted to do at all, just the way that it looked like it opened. And that was his choice in a particular game not to do that. So nothing to convince him otherwise. He loses a pretty straight up game. That was one where you just shake your head and go, yep, PvP bamboozling, cool. But it's still matched up, still 1-1. Plenty of chances for either player to win. In the bottom left of Oxide, we have DnS.
And up at the top right, we have the red Protoss player, Strange.
And it's Oxide. So one or both, we usually go for the faster Nexus. In this case, DnS goes for it. He should be predicting the probe blocking the Nexus and basically just ready to build a Zealot. Strange, not going for it, should bring his probe across the map to block it and then try maybe like one gate expand himself with just the high ground wall.
Or is he going to hide his probe in the top left-hand side and do a little shenaniganry with that second pylon?
So I've seen, just yesterday actually, this happened, where this ended up being just a gotcha probe pylon, gotcha pylon, thinking that it is going to be a proxy because, you know, hey, my guy, you're not going for an expansion like I am. You're not blocking me out. You're going for 2 gateways. You must be, you have to try and do something is actually the thing. You have to try and do something to kill me. But it looks like Strange might actually, I don't know, like we'll see what happens. But if this is like yesterday, then Strange's plan is to basically say, DnS, you gotta go for a Stargate, you gotta build geo batteries, you gotta go for a Void Ray. And in doing that, he falls behind despite having the faster Nexus. But I don't know, I think that was more effective in NA games where just NA PvP is even more of a mystery. I think Strange actually has to do something here.
Yeah, the pylon did come down on the top. Oh, you know, okay, this is actually really cute. But unfortunately for Strange, DnS immediately scouts out this proxy pylon. I was going to say, you know, you throw up you hide your second pylon and make it look like something, but then nothing shows up. But then you decide to make your third pylon the proxy and decide to do something with that. But yeah, if it gets scouted immediately, I don't know if Strange is just bailing out on his plan now and just says, well, whatever, I'll just get the scout off, or if he was also not planning to do a whole lot with that third pylon, but it is definitely going to be a vulnerable one.
Can't be anything with that.
Yeah.
It just can't be. But that it's again maybe keeping up those appearances and hoping that DnS overreacts. The thing is that if DnS gets a follow-up scout, so it's really important these 2 stalkers stop it. Okay. If it gets confirmation that a Nexus is down, or God forbid gets into the main base, DnS just uses 1 shield battery, which is, you know, fair enough, and then gets like an Oracle instead of a Void Ray, which is exactly what he's doing. And this is him, at this point, actually just getting away with a faster Nexus. There is no little secret advantage that Strange has, because DnS did not overreact here.
Yeah, DnS is looking to be in a really, really nice spot over here. Already slightly ahead in that work account. Of course, already also mining off of that natural. Has a decent number of stalkers that can deal with a wide variety of things, including, you know, having the Oracle and stuff going to be coming on out to potentially get even more of an economic advantage and also provide safety against some other things, like if there was, say, an Adept run by or something that caught him off guard. But even that will be difficult with a natural expansion wall.
This is kind of cool from Strange. So he's saying that I actually did go for a Stargate, and now I have 2 Oracles, which are gonna, you know, maybe kill you. But as scary as that is, as much of a heart attack as it is for DnS when he first sees 2 Oracles, it's very quickly apparent they're not real. So, like, I want to really be impressed with this, but hey, there's not even a pro pull. It doesn't do anything. It's just a scout.
I think the best, like the best case of what he could have asked for was a probe pull, and that the Oracle that was like 80% done from DnS gets canceled and he starts up a Phoenix. And then is like, oh, they're fake, and like cancels it and starts up an Oracle again.
Yeah.
Like that would have been like the best case, and nothing happened there.
Right, and even in that case, that's a lot of fast actions, you know? I don't even think someone could make that many mistakes that fast. By the time you're like, oh, it's an Oracle, you haven't gotten around to stopping your Oracle, you know?
It's funny because the way you phrase that is, it almost makes me feel like an Idra, like, you know, if this player was better, this would have worked better.
Yes,
like,
actually.
I only lost to them because they were bad.
Kind of, yeah. I feel like that would have been the case. But of course, this is just straight up just not doing anything. And now it's 2 Oracles for DnS, 2 very real Oracles that are absolutely intimidating, even though Strange is faster to blink. So, you know, technically the Oracle shouldn't be so bad. It's still just Oracles. like, they're almost never bad, I want to say. If you go triple Oracle and lose all 3, yeah, that's pretty bad. But if you go 1 Oracle right into a Twilight Council, that's a very minimal difference. If you go for 2, when you already have, like, a much faster Nexus, I'm totally fine with that. They're still providing scouting, stasis traps, still helpful. Still liking DNS's position, but for as bad as a faster Nexus versus a slower Nexus can sound, when we look at the numbers here, Strange has not fallen so far behind. He has a chance to take a good engagement, and then we'll see what happens. But it's so even, no one's really going to attack anytime soon by the looks of it.
Yeah, DNS does have the proxy gateway coming out on the top, on like the right-hand side of the map, and he also does. I mean, with all of his like warp gates, just focusing on warping and stalkers, I think a little bit more consistently than Strange, who's been warping like some sentries, getting up like a robo for immortals and stuff. I think that this may be going to be a chance for DNS. Actually, yeah, if he pairs with Blink and the Oracles, could blink up into the main base and really just catch Strange super out of position.
Yeah, so first of all, to be clear, I shouldn't have said even, but I just meant like it's not bad enough to end the game. But DNS actually committing this is 5 gateways. I was like macro game because there wasn't a gateway surplus, but 5 gateways is still going to provide enough firepower for DNS. Even without the blink into the main that totally catches Strange off guard. He had so many stalkers, but this is especially brutal. Strange thought he had an opportunity to move out. I don't know why, but now it's a base race, so how's this gonna work?
Oh, there's the recall. Finally coming on out. He finally got enough energy on that natural, but now that means that the Immortal is gonna be a little bit more vulnerable. Blink forward, takes out the Immortal, taking out these Stalkers. Force Field's trying to lock in a few of these Stalkers, but that just means that now the Sentries are gonna have to fight against the Stalkers. There's barely an Immortal in range of the Stalkers. Stalkers finally blink on out, heading over to the third. A few of these wait, those are pros of DNS. I think a little bit of a missed rally there over to Strange's third. He's going to end up finally recalling back home to save his own third base, and he's going to be very happy with how those trades went.
It is kind of funny that he had to recall, though. So that is at least something for Strange, who might end up losing most of the Stalkers that did it, but at least it was only 5 instead of his entire army. They are just going to give the runaround, right? But both of them saved their third Nexus. Strange is still holding on and has actually even taken a bit of an income lead. And his army's really not bad. I mean, it's down by 15 army supply, but it's 2 Immortals, a Guardian Shield, a couple Force Fields. Like, it's really not that bad. If he could actually buy enough time for the third Immortal to pop out, I think he could have saved the Nexus, but by the looks of it, he won't be able to. So, just all in at this point? I mean, he's already going for Resonating Glaives, which is a bit of a dedicated mid-game move. So now it just double confirms for him to go for the attack. Or one, in this case, it's just going for the defense, but after this, go for the attack.
Yeah, I think he might have to pretty soon. The Oracles are going to make things really awkward, though, as well, because that means he has to leave some of his very few remaining units up in the main base while the rest of the Stalkers blink on forward. Now, the Zealots are ripping these Stalkers apart, so a little bit dangerous of a move over here. DNS losing quite a few Stalkers, and yes, he got the Immortals. Yes, he's picking out a few of these Zealots here and there. It's not the worst thing in the world, but this is definitely not exactly the trade he was looking for.
I'm so surprised he did that. I mean, I can kind of see his reasoning, right? Because of the stasis trap in the main, and there was very little actually protecting the Immortals. The force fields were going to come down kind of in a panic, because who would expect you to blink on top of that many Immortals? But initially, it looked like it was a good move with the Stalkers coming out of that stasis, with the Zealots getting all the shots that they did. It is once again that situation where you're just like, well, then Strange still has a chance, right? Like, nothing that DNS has done in this game has actually solidified his victory, which he's been winning for a while, but it's not, like, super solid yet. Strange still has that hope, and now the 2-base all-in has got to be that hope. He's just, that's the only thing he can do here with a +2 advantage and an Immortal advantage. But do we see a Warp Prism? Yeah, there's still a Warp Prism.
Yeah, kind of interesting. It's Strange just going for another Immortal over here, like you were saying, but I don't know. This gets really tough though, because I think now DNS with Charge finishing up, if this takes too long for Strange, if he's gonna wait for the third Immortal and then get a Warp Prism and then move out, there's gonna be an opportunity for DNS to have banked off of that 3-base economy he's had going for him and actually warp in enough Zealots that, yeah, the Zealots for Strange, which I think he's heavily been relying on, are not going to be able to do exactly what they need to do. I'm going to also note, Strange's Zealots don't have Charge. Like,
I think initially some of them were just like for the idea of having a zealot, which is tankiness, and if the stalkers blink, they'll swipe. But
Which
then
they did.
Yeah, no, that worked. But then I don't know if he like kind of forgot that he didn't get charge because he did warp in more, and now he's like, oh right, I want resetting glaives. So now he's warping in the adepts. But even as stage strap buying more time, I'm totally with you. I think waiting for that immortal and then the warp prism was already too far gone. Like there was a very slim chance if he had moved exactly, a minute and a half ago, because he did have a slight army supply lead, but it was quickly going to disappear. DnS was going to build more. Not even because of his third base, he just was going to build more charge lots, and now the number is extreme. So Strange, he's got an even-ish army supply. His actual army type is significantly worse against 24 charge lots.
Yeah, Stalker's kind of out of position. Oh, but Strange is going to be going after the rocks first. That gives the Stalkers time to get in position. Couple hallucinated Archons coming on out to soak up some of the damage. One Archon doing a very nice job of body blocking a lot of these Zealots at the front lines. Couple of force fields also coming out on Strange's side. The Warp Prism able to successfully get off more Adept Warpins. The Stalkers can't quite get in on top of the Warp Prism until now. It gets Focus Fire down, but the Immortals really putting in a lot of firepower. The problem is these Archons have done so much damage to the Adepts, and now there's just not that much of a front line over here for Strange. Remember, Strange is not going to have the reinforcements quite like DNS. And we see that DNS has a little too much. GG 2-1 for DNS.
I love the hallucinated Archons, but the lacking real Archons was the biggest issue in that fight. Like, he needed actual splash Archons to deal with the amount of charge lots DNS had thrown. But even missing those crucial Archons, the real ones, that was a closer fight for a second than I thought it was going to be. It was pretty one-sided at the end, but for a second in the middle, I was like, ooh, okay. This lasted longer. But no, it was actually still super one-sided. DNS's composition was just so much better.
Absolutely. Well, that is, remember, this is a best of 5, so that is going to put us now at match point finally. It went 1-1. We got a little bit more of a drawn-out series, but this is going to start being where it gets a bit more intense because one of these players is going to be able to qualify. And I think a lot of people probably know DNS by name a little bit more. DNS is, I feel like he's been still one of those players that's faltered every so often, but he's been one of the more consistent players toward the qualification rounds and everything and making it into, say, the round of 32. Strange has been one of those in and out players. So I think if Strange can pull this series back and make something happen, that'd be big for him.
Right, I agree with that assessment. It's just no surprise if Strange to make it through, nor DNS, but DNS has maybe been a little more stable. There was a point years ago, back when Drogo was having trouble familiarizing himself with Legacy of the Void, so years and years ago, that DNS was, I think, one of the best up-and-coming Protoss was, if Drogo, Showtime, who would have been 3 years or 5-6 years ago? I mean, he was making his way to top 3, honestly.
5-6 years ago would include Lobo.
What did he say?
2015, right before Legacy of the Void launch.
No, I'm talking Legacy of the Void, though. Like, specifically, Drogo was having trouble.
Lobo was preparing for Legacy.
I know, but he didn't play it. That's why I was like, wait a second. Anyways, he's actually, like, casting the Smash, funnily enough. So my point was that DNS was actually getting up there. By beating Drogo and consistently in, like, the next, like, best French Protoss as well, he was actually, like, really up there, but it didn't last too long, unfortunately. He has still stayed very consistent. So I agree with your analysis. I miss early day Legacy of the Void. Protoss had no idea what they were doing. It was fun.
That I feel like that is the nature of not just like, I mean, especially the expansions, but also just whenever we have any kind of notable big patch, it's like Protoss floundering. Wait a second, build order. Protoss dominating. Then Zerg usually figured things out, and it's like, oh, okay, hold on. This build isn't that broken. Just we need to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. 100% agreement. Like, it's just so silly that, especially for like the entire expansion, the super big overhaul of Protoss, it was like, you guys get to shine. It mimicked the campaign, feardragon. It was like, you guys are going to get this thing called a Disruptor. We're giving you the Reaver back. We've taken into account the lacking gateway unit things. We're going to give you the Adept. You guys are going to be great. And so it was like the first mission where you did like F2A move everywhere. And then when people were finally given access to Legacy of the Void, they were like, oh no, Protoss is so different and so bad right now. Shit. It's exactly like the second mission where they just give you like Zeratul and 5 Stalkers. Like, you guys had it rough for a while.
Do you know what my favorite period was? When Protoss players got the Adept and they're like, Zealots are immediately useless and will never be made again. And then there was not a buff to the Zealot, and people were like, wait, actually Zealot. That's still pretty good. We haven't really changed these for a long time, but they're still pretty good.
I know, that was fun. I mean, if you guys weren't around, the funniest thing, so to bring it back a little bit to this matchup, was that PvP was, this looks nothing like Heart of the Swarm, Wings of Liberty PvP. No, not at all. Walls weren't a thing. They didn't have to be a thing. But then the Adept came in, and for the first 2 months of Legacy of the Void, people were scratching their heads at how it couldn't just end up with a constant base trade. It was Adept, Oracle, every game, and it was just who killed each other's workers faster. And then I don't remember who it was, but someone's like, what if we walled? And whoever that was, I mean, just like, they're the savior of the Protoss race, honestly.
Yeah. Oh man. PvP. You know, it's so funny because you were talking earlier. I was like, we're not gonna retell the entire history of PvP, but it is a fascinating history. ZombieGrub. I was just thinking while I still have it fresh in my mind. If you ever wanted to make an SC2 history video that might be a little bit longer, going over each of the metagame shift, like the major metagame shift periods of PvP, would actually be a really fun video. Drunk history.
I think it absolutely would be. It's just so hard. It takes so long. So many things were changed. But it would be fun.
True. Yeah. Well, in this PvP, we do have a pretty mirrored opening. It's been a while since this happened, but game number 1 was actually also very similar mirrored openings where we did have both these players going for Twilight Council Forge, getting them Blinking +1 weapons, staying very on top of things with those early sentry scouts, which they both have 3 sentries to do. This is actually looking very similar. The only small difference is that we got this proxy pawn here from DnS. He's warping in a few more adepts rather than stalkers, and gonna try and poke forward and see if he can find some damage.
Right, and that's a nice little addition if you can get any amount of damage done, honestly. Like, if it's totally stonewalled, then, oh yeah, there you go, probe already killed. Then, you know, it kind of is lame. It's not really as good as having your blink a little bit faster, but considering that 2 adepts should be doing something, 1 probe is not quite enough. I'd like more.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you can keep these adepts alive for a little bit longer, you know what? People don't think about it, but every time you throw in that shield battery and have to cancel it, if you force it out twice, it's like killing an extra probe. That's 50 minerals down the drain, so not too bad. Interesting to send the stalkers and the sentries here. I don't see this very often.
It's kind of the Protoss equivalent of making 20 lings instead of 10 in ZVZ, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just to be like, aha, you didn't make those extra 10 lings, so gotcha. Your 3rd hatchery's dead.
Man, you could actually force field out some of these stalkers. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the Nexus is pretty far gone, so target firing it with this many units isn't really feasible. But if DnS had been a little better with the force fields, he could have sliced the army so that 2 stalkers pop forward or something, right?
Yeah, there's the recall being forced on out. We're gonna lose 1 sentry. I mean, he killed 1 of Strange's sentries, so I guess that kind of balances out. It's a little bit unfortunate that both the adepts didn't survive that shade, by the way, because there was the shield battery there to protect them. But hey, I mean, Strange actually finished his shield battery between the main and the natural and everything. So small little bits of damage, small little skirmishes. They seem to come out pretty even.
Yep. Could have been a little bit better for DnS. Especially since he was slightly later to his 3rd Nexus that's only just finishing. So he's down 5 probes, and he's going to be there for a little while longer as they both saturate. They are both going to get saturated. We're moving on to that next stage of PvP where it is about the gateways, and then the +2 started up, Charge, and Archon. DnS is getting a Warp Prism, so he's going to take control of the map once again. I like that he's moving out. He's doing interesting things. Just thank you, DnS. But I don't know if it's going to be like super committed, at least not initially. But Charge will have to be chronoed maybe once or twice to hit well timed with this push that DnS has in mind.
Yeah, just to note, like, the difference in gateway count is definitely going to be a big factor over here, as we have 8 gateways going to be finishing up for Strange, and DnS still just on those 5 or 6 right now. And so it's kind of funny, like you were saying, DnS being the interesting one, doing these little move outs and everything. I'm a little worried if he hits right as a lot of these power units start coming out over here for Strange and he starts getting up all these upgrades. He could be caught in a very awkward spot, but right now he's still safe to continue doing these little push-ins.
The Stalker numbers are just so great that it should be safe. Like, if it's not going to work, you just back away. If it is going to work, then you commit. But DNS is going to have to make the choice here, and so far it's just force fields to keep the army back, little bits of damage, and then a retreat, which I think makes sense. Strange might not have a lot of Stalkers, but the Zealots are intimidating if they get closer, if Charge is somewhat finishing, which it actually is for Strange. And the shield battery's been there this entire time. So now that Charge is done, I think DNS has got to skedaddle. Because, yeah, where's this Warp Prism? Where did it go? Yeah, it sent the Sentry back home. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think he was a little worried that, you know, if Charge or something finishes up, and then it's like, oh, the Charge forces my Stalkers back, and the Warp Prism is still in warping mode. Oh no, I lost it. Like, there goes all of my map presence. But fourth base is already coming on up over here for DNS, so he gets a little bit of a lead on that. Very interestingly, both these players are kind of expanding into each other with their fourth bases as well. So that is going to maybe make things a little bit more contentious in the center of the map.
It is different. It started off with a third base, right? Strange got a triangle pattern. DNS went for the, I think, more typical vertical pattern. So, you know, the fact, like, for their thirds, their fourths make sense. But it's, yeah, not seen too often in this situation. Big tug of war on the upper side of Lightshade. Now, DNS, perhaps hoping that that's what Strange is going to be doing, to protecting the upper half, has sent most of his Stalkers to the bottom left. He doesn't find any freebies, though, and isn't really going to push the issue.
I was going to say, it seemed funny because I don't think that Strange saw the Stalkers at all. And now he kind of runs in with some of the Stalkers, like, oh, there's a bunch of Stalkers over here. He repositions his army between his third and his fourth, or natural. But Warp Prism for DNS tries to move in, doesn't find a whole lot, loses two of the units that were inside to those Zealots, but is now finding opportunity to move in with the Stalkers and then blinks on out before the Charge. Really gets a ton of damage done, although now Chargelot's going to be able to find a Stalker or two maybe.
You know, as we now have two fairly good macro games under our belt, I am surprised to see no one's gone for a Dark Shrine. We do see the inclusion often around the third base saturation, and then thus we also see like cannons come up at that time too. But neither player adding on any Dark Shrine, really just going for the direct engagements, and in this case, DNS is caught surrounded. Strange takes a bit of a victory there, still overall lesser in supply.
Oh, I love that Strange, as soon as he knows that he's done a nice cleanup on that army, the first thing he does, as soon as that recall is going off, as he starts warping in a couple of Stalkers at home, because he did not forget about that Warp Prism. He warped in Stalkers on both sides of it, and that was the moment that DNS was also like, well, your entire army's here, so I should be able to do something at your home base. And, I mean, Strange just says, no, I'm ready. I know that there's that Warp Prism there. I'm not going to let you do anything with that.
It was a nice little maneuver. As this DNS is scouting pylon, gives him a little bit of notice that an attack is on the way. The Charge lots have shown themselves, so he is setting up. Doesn't quite know if it's going to commit to the fourth base or the third, however, and that could be a problem depending on who has the better arc and the better arc on a charge engagement. Actually, I say charge, but Strange is very charge lot light. He has so many Stalkers. Things have really turned around from earlier. And does he have enough Archons, though, to take out DNS's charge lots? Seems like maybe just enough. Strange's Immortal starting to punch through the Archons of DNS. The Stalker starting to blink backwards, though, defensively isn't a very good sign. Strange, his supply isn't plummeting yet, but he hasn't taken out all of the really powerful units of his opponents. An Archon, two Immortals still alive. Shield battery on the way for DNS's fourth base. The supply starting to tip a little bit in favor of Strange, however, as he goes forward, tries to grab the Immortal, can't really. And I think that's going to be a hold.
That is going to be a really, really nice play there from DNS. Nice micro. He kept his Immortals alive, like you were talking about. Those power units were so important. Strange was trying to push in, and his Immortals were kind of in front of all of his Stalkers, which is fine until all of your Zealots disappear and your Archons disappear. And then suddenly your Immortals are the ones that are getting taken out by your opponent's Zealots, and that's not where they want to be. Strange lost a lot of his firepower. Now you look at his army, it's pure Stalker Zealot. Now a few Archons are finally being warped, and he's trying to replace those power units, but DNS does not have that problem. He's got 4 Archons, 3 Immortals, powering his army, and because they expanded toward each other, it doesn't take very long for DNS to put the counter pressure on.
No, it does not. Certainly Not going to give time for Strange to get to these Disruptors or the Dark Shrine. DNS is still down an upgrade, which is one of the reasons that Strange was insistent about doing that attack. A full upgrade lead is awfully tempting for any type of Protoss player, but I think compositionally it was a little bit lacking. 1 or 2 more Archons for Strange would have made a big deal, or perhaps a number of his own Zealots as opposed to the amount of Stalkers he had. I'm thinking, I'm going more towards more Archons would have sealed it for Strange, but they weren't there. And as such, he couldn't quite kill all those power units. DNS knows he's got the advantage, waits for +3 to finish, sets up a huge arc, and this is going to be a really tough hold for Strange, but he's got to do it. If he doesn't, he's going to find himself in the lower brackets. He wants to win here and then maybe win game number 5, make it nice and easy for him to get into DreamHack Summer, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, really nice attempt there from Strange to try and buy some time. Oh my god, this Disruptor shot hits so many of the Zealots. Maximum value for the Disruptor, 15 Zealot kills. But even that is not going to be enough because more Stalkers get warped and the Archons are surviving. The third base is going to go down. Strange still needs another 1 or 2 more of those on the core of this army, and the Disruptor is getting focus fire down. I mean, a nice way for Strange to go out in that, and he does try to get another big Disruptor hit, doesn't quite get it. I want to know during all this, there's actually a really good Zealot run by on the other side of the map. Strange is getting damage done with that, but he's just losing a little bit more.
Yeah, those 2 Disruptor shots really gave him an opportunity, and some Zealots on top of the 4 Immortals is actually really amazing. A 3rd Disruptor had finally gotten a shot on top of DNS's Stalkers. I think he was focusing back at home and probably just thinking, I've won the game, let's just go ahead and end it. But things are a little closer than perhaps DNS is comfortable with. His War Prism was pretty far away for the reinforcements. The Zealots on top of the Immortals was actually perfect for the end battle there, but Strange lost an entire Nexus. Did he actually kill enough probes to make up for it? Nope. DNS on 5 bases. That's a lot.
Yeah. 5 probes going to be able to be reproduced at once over there for DNS, and he's still leading up in that worker count. More Disruptors are coming out. That is the saving grace over here for Strange, is that he's going to have those big power units that could potentially get, you know, game-changing Disruptor hits off again. But right now he is cut off from that 4th base. This army, as soon as it starts pushing back Strange into his natural again, he's going to have the opportunity to even just send a handful of Stalkers to try and take out those photon cannons and everything over there. Disruptor shot gets 1 Zealot, but this is starting to get grimmer and grimmer. I do like these DTs moving across the map. Once again, I would love if you join them together to take out the cannons, because I think that is maybe an opportunity if you can shut down the newer bases, not just the, you know, the natural or the main base or something. I think that if you could shut down some of the newer bases, maybe he could start to equalize a little economically.
Right, yeah, but he could barely afford to make the 2 DTs, you know? There's 1 and then another 1 and no more after that. Disruptor's gonna try and get a good shot, but yeah, both at the same time in an easy blink forward. DNS has got this game and this series in the bag, and he will definitely be moving on to DreamHack Summer. Strange, well, he's got 1 more shot. He's got the lower bracket.
Yeah. GG gets called. DNS showcases why he is one of the more consistent players to make it into that round of 32 for DreamHack. Well done. Congratulations to him after defeating both Solier as well as Strange. He's going to earn that spot in that round of 32.
Nice. So with DNS qualifying, he joined